Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. I am your host, Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Roger Peterson, President of Beacon Sales Advisories Group. Roger, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anthony.
So today, Roger and I are going to be jumping into the topic around leading and growing a sales and marketing team for your business. Roger has a very interesting path and also just took the leap of faith into starting his own business. So Roger, why don't we start there? What motivated you to leave your corporate role as a VP of sales to start Beacon Sales Advisory?
Well, that's a great question. I have spent the better part of 33 plus years in corporate America, and I think that my story is probably resonates with a lot of people in my same shoes. Is that as you continue to escalate and elevate yourself into organizations, the demands of the job are just spin out of control, specifically travel demands. And so there was a point in time when I realized that, my work and personal life balance were just out of whack. I wasn't present in situations where my family or my friends needed me. And because I was in Timbuktu, dealing with sales issues. So I made a decision, it was a personal decision that I wanted to take a pivot and leave corporate America and start this own, start Beacon Sales Advisory Group, because it allows me some flexibility. It minimizes my travel, and it's really my give back opportunity to those small to mid-sized companies that I think would value the 33 plus years of sales and sales leadership experience that I come to bear.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the biggest areas that business owners struggle with, especially in the small to medium space, is developing sales and marketing talent. And whether they're outsourcing, some of those functions, or they're trying to bring it in-house, or they just want to take that, we like to call it owner-led sales. They want to take that sales hat off and be able to run their business and have somebody else execute. I think you're a perfect fit in there.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, Anthony, if I could add to that, because I think that, you hit the nail on the head, is that you have these owner operators that are managing a comprehensive business. And these owner operators tend to have backgrounds that may not align to sales leadership. Yep. And sales leadership, as you know, Anthony, is just it's a art and science. It's a very learned, but gut type of expertise. And owner operators without that experience, they may not be doing it as effectively as someone with some experience. So I think you're spot on.
Awesome. Let's get into some of the common traps business owners face when trying to grow their business.
Yeah. Well, I think that it really falls into three areas. I think, number one, it's strategy. Do they have a strategy that's sound, a sales strategy? And, are they targeting the right customers? Are they calling on those customers with the right frequency, with the right message, with the right tools? And so it's really strategy, and which leads into, once you have that strategy refined, what are the tools? What are the resources? What are the messaging that comes with that strategy? And so you got to make sure you have that tied down. And then the other real pitfall, and we just talked about a little bit, is that these owner operators, they're trying to do everything. They're wearing many hats in these organizations, and so, they're trying to run sales, they're trying to run operations, and they're trying to manage the entire business at the same time. So it's just difficult. But those are the things that I'm seeing with clients. It's fairly consistent across the board with those clients that are having challenges with their business.
Yeah, I guess I want to ask you on that. So out of those three, where would you start specifically? Because I could dig into the three. And on this episode with you, I got to be careful that I don't go too deep, right? But I could see all three of those. I guess where I want to get to is, out of those three, the one that you're like, hey, if you knock this one off, the other two can follow.
Yeah, everything starts and ends with strategy. You have to have the right strategy. You have to have the right focus. And then once you have that, everything's an offshoot to that strategy. So again, strategy drives communication, drives the tools, it drives who you're talking to. And so once you have that strategy, then everything else is going to fall in line after that.
Love it.
Yeah.
What are some key tips to growing revenue for a business?
Well, we did a little study at Sales Acceleration, and it was talking about those 4 different buckets that are most critical to a small business. It's around strategy, what we were just talking about. It's around analysis or analytics, methodology, as well as sales organization. And so, the numbers in terms of the percent of small businesses that actually focus and execute against those 4 buckets, it's incredibly high. It's in that 80 to 90%. So 88% of companies don't necessarily focus on strategy, positioning, competitors, value proposition. Because if your value proposition as a small company, as a small business, if that value proposition isn't clearly defined and doesn't differentiate you from all the other cats and dogs out there, then that's a problem. So 89% don't typically look at analysis, good goals, quota, metrics, compensation. There's an instance where I was dealing with a mid-size operation, and they had 10 account managers or sales reps. I asked about compensation. What does that compensation program look like for those 10? Believe it or not, for the 10, there were 7 different types of comp plans for the 10 different individuals. It was all over the place. And so,
my financial controller would kill me if I did that. Like, how am I supposed to pay these people?
Right. But he was great. The owner operator was scratching his head. He goes, they're not doing what I want them to do. And so how are you compensating them? And so it was all over the place. So we really, the analytics, and then I talked about the methodology. Right customer with the right message, with the right tools. And then finally, the sales organization. Do you have the right, and I call it butts and seats. Do you have the right butts and seats? Do you have like the profile, a job description? Do you have a competency profile? And the people that you have in the seats today, do they match up to what you need to get the job done?
Yeah, we have a saying, and I think you probably resonate with this as well. Yeah. It's like we compensate what we want, right? Yeah. So in our business, what we prefer is a monthly recurring revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we've built everything around. But we'll talk to a lot of our peers, so companies that are like us all across the country, and they're not compensated. They want the same thing, but then you ask about the compensation plans for account managers or for hunters, and they're not compensating for it, right? So me as a salesperson, and anybody else that I bring in, I'm going to focus on exactly what I'm going to get compensated the most for. Yep. So that's a really quick way to help pivot. Yep. Like, nope, we want this.
Yep.
Go get it.
And we can help them do that. We can help these owner operators to say, okay, so you're saying we need a new comp plan. And I'd say, absolutely. If you want X, Y, and Z, you need to compensate for X, Y, and Z. And then they kind of look at me and say, I'm not sure how to do that. So, and those are some of the things, and we'll talk about that. Those are some of the things I can do. It said, hey, listen, owner operator, I'll take care of that. You focus on the overarching business. I got the sales piece in line. I'll get this thing tight and right and ready to go.
Another question for you, Roger, on comp plans is when you come into an organization and the comp plans are actually hurting the business,
Right.
Or somebody like us, we're going out and looking for other companies like us to go out and acquire them, and we walk into a business with the wrong comp plans.
Yeah.
How do you that's actually negatively affecting the business, or that individual is just now kind of stuck and happy and comfortable?
Yeah.
There's real no incentive to go out and push the the throttle. How do you handle that? And this is for my own learning as well.
Yeah, I think that if you recognize, if let's say I'm going into a business and I recognize that the comp is off and it needs to be revamped, it's really an opportunity to engage with the sales organization. So I've always been a believer in that you engage with thought leaders at the sales rep level. And so you get, if there's 10 sales reps and you get 2 of those and say, hey, come on in. We're going to get you and the national sales, the sales manager. We're going to get us all together and we're going to figure out what's important to this business. And if new business is important to this business, then let's drive it into the comp plan. And then let them own that decision. So I'm not going to be the one that says, okay, this is what we got to do. And then you got to accept it. No, it's like, let's figure it out together. And then you own it. And then you can help socialize that with your peers.
Awesome. So Roger, talking about back to your career in corporate America and understanding the things that they have access to, the tools they have access to, the amount of sales budget and training they have access to. How do you take that knowledge and then bring it to your customers today to help impact their business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So 33 years ago, I was lucky enough to get a job at Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is one of the best organizations when it comes to bringing people on board and then training them, giving them really the sales and sales leadership fundamentals. And so I was lucky enough to not only spend 25 of my 33 years with J&J, but I was able to take advantage of the many different opportunities within J&J. I could have taken 2 different paths with J&J. I could have either, gone into McNeil Consumer Healthcare, which is part of J&J, which is an OTC healthcare business. And I could have stayed there for my, 25 years and just gone up the ranks there. But what I opted to do is get 12 or 13 years, I think it was 13 years of OTC healthcare experience. I segued over to pharmaceuticals within J&J. So I spent 12 years with Janssen and Ortho McNeil in that business. And again, it still had the J&J fundamentals and training. And so what I'm able to do is I'm able to take the experiences of J&J and all that training that I've been able to capture from that. And I'm able to now apply that to these small to mid-sized companies. And the good news is that J&J, everybody thinks of J&J as this huge organization. It's a big organization, but it's made up of about 150 different smaller operating units. And so I was lucky enough to be in the biggest, sales organization, but also, be a vice president of sales in one of the very smaller organizations as well. So it's almost like a startup, scrappy, entrepreneurial type of feel. So I had different cultures, different industries, different, functional experiences along the way.
Yeah, you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You get the big company feel, but then you can be nimble and agile as you're
Right.
executing.
Right.
So here's another topic I want to go back and forth with you on, which I'm very passionate about, is the role marketing plays in revenue growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all starts with marketing. People have a tendency to say sales and marketing is the same thing. It isn't. It's not the same thing. Marketing, and I was lucky enough to spend 5 or 6 years in both brand and customer marketing. And what I know about marketing and what I believe in marketing is it's absolutely critical, because what they're going to give us is they're going to give us appropriate targeting. So who are the customers? Here's the ideal profile of the customer that we're targeting. It's going to give us messaging. So this is the messaging that resonates with our customers. This is what's going to move them to buy, take them from prospect to purchase. And then they're also going to give us tools that has this messaging built into it. So again, they're the top of the funnel. They're the ones that are helping us throw the customers into the top of the funnel. It's really up to sales to take the funneled clients and make sure that we ensure that who we're talking to is the right client. But marketing is very critical to the equation.
Yeah, and what we've seen great results on is actually getting sales and marketing, and even you could call it product or service, getting everybody together and saying, like, I think it's critical that sales talks to marketing. Hey, these are the conversations I'm having. These are the questions that these, whether they be prospects or customers, are asking us. How do we create collateral? How do we answer these questions before they even get to us?
Right.
Or when they do get to us on our website or wherever they find us first, how do we speak to them of like, oh my gosh, they're answering the question that's in my head before I even asked it.
Exactly.
And I think that's the getting sales, marketing, and product service together to start thinking that way, and then pushing that content or whatever the material is out there so people can learn. And it's gonna help both, right? Marketing's gonna get better because they're actually talking to the needs of the client. Sales is gonna get better because the people that flow through that are gonna be, they're the ones that you answered all the questions for.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. What are some keys to developing and executing a sales and marketing plan in your business?
Yeah, there's a number of really important keys to the plan. First of all, it needs to be very well defined. So I always like to start with the end in mind. So what are those KPIs? What are those critical key performance indicators that we want to make sure that we're monitoring going in? The leading indicators, the lagging indicators. What does that sales process look like? Positioning of the product, competitive insights, team structure, selling methodologies. So there's a lot of things that we need to make sure they're clearly defined going into the process. Number two, clearly communicated. It's what's most important to me is that when you're building a plan, it's not built from just my perspective. It's engaging others along the way that are players within the plan itself. But we want to make sure that it's clearly communicated and there's ownership of the plan itself. We mentioned the unique value proposition. And again, the importance of making sure that the value that you're bringing to bear, make sure that that is clearly communicated and it's a differentiator for your organization. So unique value proposition, targeted customer oriented, knowing who your customers are, knowing the frequency that's needed to be in order to cover them, and making sure you're having the right tools. And then finally, actionable. This sales strategy, you need to know what actions you're going to take. The last thing we want to do is put together a sales plan, a sales business plan, and then put it into a pretty binder and it goes right on the shelf and no one touches it until the next year. That's the last thing we want. So you need to make sure the actions that you need to take from that are very clear.
And when should a customer or a business start to execute on this, start to think about it, and what type of people should be involved? Let's get into that a little bit because I think that's interesting. You had mentioned like making sure everybody is kind of involved. Let's dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think that it out of the gates, I think you need to figure out what your timing is. And how I was trained is that timing of the business plan usually is at the onset of the year. So if you are if you're on a fiscal calendar of 1/1. And you went probably in that 3Q, 4Q timeframe. That's when you want to start working this thing out. And I think the players involved would be obviously the sales leader, the owner operator, and then I think that you would want to have your sales leadership in place. You want to have them part of the mix, and then I think gaining marketing's perspective. Obviously they're the ones that are going to help provide the customer insights and the type of customer and the messaging. So, I mean, a lot of the key marketing, sales, operations, obviously, senior leadership needs to be part of the mix as well.
Awesome. And the final thing I have here on sales, and I think a lot of owner operators potentially get this wrong too, is bringing in that sales manager or promoting up that sales manager. So can you give us an idea on the characteristics that owner operators businesses should be thinking about when bringing on a good sales manager?
Yeah, I always go back to the saying that you never quit a job, you quit a manager. And I think that it's really important to look at that and say, okay, I need a person that someone's going to follow. And where that starts and stops is really how well that person is engaging with the selling team, the sales team. So I think, making sure that the relationships are solid and that that person has the ability to develop and nurture a relationship with the sales organization, coaching and mentoring skills. If I'm in the field with a sales rep, I am for sure going to be giving that person, some coaching, so they can't be afraid. This person, this sales manager cannot be afraid to offer coaching, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but coaching in a constructive way. I think that the sales manager needs to be able to demonstrate. That's the difference between the sales leader and the sales manager. That sales leader is going to, be able to demonstrate what good looks like, and you can, and that's a teaching moment for the sales rep. I think we talked about inspired and leading and motivating a team. I'm just a couple of things that do resonate with me is that the conversation around accountability, that always makes people uncomfortable, is that you're holding someone accountable to something that they said they were going to deliver, or something that's part of what they need to deliver as a sales rep. So that level of accountability, holding their team accountable to whatever is whatever needs to be delivered on the KPIs. So there's a really an art and science to that sales management piece, but if you get the right sales manager in place, I mean, the sky's the limit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What types of clients are you typically engaging with at Beacon, and what are your goals with these clients?
Yeah, usually it's small to mid-sized companies, okay, and it's industry agnostic, so it's not necessarily, my background is healthcare, and I have, like I said, my entire career is health and beauty care, throughout my whole 33 years. But in terms of who I'm dealing with, it could be any industry. It could be an industry where they're selling widgets or professional services. So from an industry perspective, doesn't matter. But it's that small to mid-sized company, typically owner operated. So you have the owner who is managing the business, but usually they're managing a sales organization, yet ineffectively, because maybe they don't have that experience. And so it's really those types of businesses that, the owner operator wakes up and says, you know what, my sales are completely off. I got to figure this thing out, but I don't know what to do. And so it's those kinds of companies, that the owner operators that realize, it's something's broken here, and I'm not quite sure how to identify it. And even if I knew how to identify it, I'm not sure how to fix it. So those are the kinds of companies that I'm engaged with. They're looking to me to say, hey, listen, come in, help me fix this so I can focus on running the business.
Awesome. Awesome. Roger, well, we're coming up on our time here, and I definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to come and share this advice with our audience. Where can people reach out to you to learn more about you and your services?
Okay, so obviously I'm on LinkedIn, but let me give you the phone number and my email address. And so if someone wants to reach out, my phone number is area code 215-749-2583. Again, 215-749-2583. And my email address is rpeterson@salesacceleration.com. Now, sales acceleration is SALESXCELERATION.
Great, Roger. And we'll make sure we link to LinkedIn and the website and everything there so people can find it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Roger Peterson, President of Beacon Sales Advisory Group. Roger, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.